Tuesday, it's Mansfield today, and in our bright, new, fresh, and good and clean and fresh studio, we welcome Advocate Lance Brogden. Nice to have you in our brand new Mansfield Today studio for the first time, Lance.
Afternoon, Jim. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice to be here. We're talking corporate governance today. Okay, these are big words for me. What the hell is corporate governance?
To make sense of it, corporate governance is about a system that governs the way things are done in an organization, how it's directed and how it's managed and how people behave. So it's about a system more than particular individual issues.
Okay. Why is corporate governance so important? I mean, let's just specifically talk about South Africa.
As we found out in recent times, the amount of fraud, misappropriation of funds, falsification of documents, all of those events that have been happening that have caused extreme damage to our country, also indirectly and directly to corporations and organizations, is even more reason why we have to have a system that is monitored, that is trustworthy, and that teaches us and shows us and guides how to run our businesses. We can't continue having this drain, Jim. I mean, state capture, etc. It's all related to a lack of corporate governance.
What are the primary characteristics of corporate governance then?
I think that's the critical thing. So it's about responsibility, accountability, fairness. Fairness is very important. Integrity. Then you get to more modern things like information technology and how that is managed. Also, social responsibility. So it's a whole array of, they sound like just words, but they're all connected into one system that ensures we are doing things properly in an organized manner that can be measured and accounted for and help us run our businesses better.
Okay, well then, what is so important about, we've had the King Commissions and the King Reports and the King Code, and what's so important about this?
So the King Codes, the King Reports from Mervyn King, amazing man and amazing work he's done over many years. So King 1, the first report came out in '94 and started laying the ground rules for how we should run our companies and our businesses and how we should behave and interact with clients and with each other and with society at large. Over time, there was a King 2 report, a King 3 report, and now there's a King 4 report, which came out in 2017, April was the last one. But going back a bit, up to King 3 report, there were 75 core principles which one had to exercise and execute and manage in the interests of the business. Now we're at King 4, there are only 17. Okay, there's actually 16 that accounts for most companies. The 17th one relates to institutional investors, which we're not going to touch on now. But the change that's happened, they built on each other, but they become refined. So it captures certain concepts in groups, and Mervyn King has pushed this through with great support and learned a lot from other countries in the world, and they've learned from us. But in essence now, there are 16 key principles which you should run a company within those principles to ensure a well-run company that's responsible and people want to deal with and people trust.
What's the difference in the various versions of the King Report?
I think that's a good question. So they develop with each other over time. So in more recent times around the world, social responsibility has become a big part of big corporations. You can't just make profit just for yourself. You've got to be an integral part of the environment within which you operate. But more recently, and as we all know, technology is a massive part of every business. Go to the POPI Act, how you protect people's information, how you use the technology. So good corporate governance in that arena, which is very modern and more in King 4 now, is that your technology must have all the protections, all the disciplines to protect people's information, to protect your information, to protect your clients' information, to protect your suppliers' information. It's a good way of running a business so that nothing untoward gets out and you don't infringe on things like the POPI Act.
So I mean, corporate governance in that regard is something that is has got to be by its own nature ongoing and sticking with the times and all the rest of it. Are there other countries around the world that have similar codes to the King Code?
A lot of them have codes, a lot of them legislate them more, but similar to the King Code. Absolutely, and we look at them very closely are Canada, Australia, and wow, there's one more. Canada and Australia primarily are the closest to us in terms of the King Code, yeah.
Okay. Let's look at this.
The USA, Canada, the USA, and Australia and South Africa are very similar in the way we believe companies should be run, information shared, the way we deal with our stakeholders.
So you're getting old, you starting to forget stuff, eh?
Well, Jimmy, I don't want to talk about
yeah, pot kettle black, make a sentence. Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to this thing that's called the Internal Audit Committee. Is that right? Is that the right?
Well, internal audit committee, same thing. Okay. So when people hear the word audit, they think, oh, it's accounting. The real role of the internal audit and the auditor and the audit committee is to actually look at two things, okay? The process disciplines in the company and seeing that they are executed and measured properly. They also look at the financial disciplines. Are they done properly? Are they followed up? Are they followed through? So it's about the operational flow as well as financial flow. It's not about the accounting process that your external auditors do or your accounting division, okay? Internal auditor audits the way things are done, that they're measured, and that's very closely aligned with corporate governance. How do we do things around here? Do we have our regular meetings? Do we have a finance and audit meeting? What do they look at? Do we share everything with our external auditors? But also our processes. How do we do procurement? You know, how do we ensure that there's nobody in our company getting kickbacks for the work that's being done? So that internal audit is not strictly an accounting practice, although it does look at accounting protocols and processes.
Okay, but then what is the primary role of the internal auditor?
The internal auditor in your organization is a pivotal role. It's as important as your CFO, your CEO. Ensures that we're following practices and protocols in a disciplined manner, that people look at our organization and are proud to deal with us, feel safe to deal with us, are comfortable if we put out a tender, that the tender is real, it's accurate, it's articulate, and that inside that company, we are following the best practices we have to ensure that we're operating properly.
Okay, now you see, I've built this entire discussion. I was thinking like a lawyer.
Fees, there's no thinking.
I've worked my way through this and I've asked all the right questions. And now this is where, in the TV series, in any case, the lawyer turns around with that whatish question suddenly. And I'm going to whatish you now. If we support all these wonderful principles and we have all of these committees and these codes and all of that in place, why the hell is there so much corruption in South Africa?
Because we don't support them and we don't follow them. We have them, and we promise to do them, and a lot of organizations do, and you can be proud of many organizations. But at the higher level, government doesn't. I mean, I don't have to say anything. They don't have those disciplines in place, those checks and balances. The anti-nepotism, the employing the best people, the ensuring that when you go out there, it's all fair. This is why it is so important to us. It must become an inculcated way of life. Our children at school should be taught this. Basically, we teach all sorts of things, but we don't teach them that you have to be fair, equitable, responsible, take accountability for what you do. You have to be socially responsible. You have to ensure that your information technology systems are there in place and don't fall over. Jeremy, I think that's the most important question. Why are we such a corrupt country? The world looks at us on the corruption scale and we are deep and dark in being very corrupt. And it's because this is important, we're not doing these things.
Where do we go from here then?
I think it's an education thing. I think we have to expose, name and shame. We have to be totally transparent. And inside organizations, okay, what happens when they pick up these malpractices, they tend to maybe ask somebody to resign or go away or change the practice. And I understand that. They're trying to protect the integrity of their shareholder and stakeholder wealth, etc. But they've got to be ruthless. It must become a part of the business that there's some things you can't do. You cannot take a bribe. You cannot fix an election. You can't do these things. So I think where to from here is that we look at the King report, especially the new one, King 4. There are only 16 principles now, and they're very tight. We must look at them and be hard on them. And more so, the fish rots from the head. The government of the day, the municipal leaders of the day, the provincial leaders of the day, the political will must be there to ensure that we do things with good corporate governance and good protocols, practices, and social practices.
From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, and thanks for allowing us to have this chat. Guys, this is critically important. This is not just a throwaway line. The future, the integrity of the world investing in us and supporting us is that they want to trust the businesses they're dealing with. They want to trust the government they're dealing with. If they don't trust the way you do things, the chances of investing here are very slim, if at all.
Advocate Lance Brogden, thank you very much for your time.
Jeremy,
Talk to you once again.
indeed.
And we'll catch you tomorrow with Dr. Vicky Skitter on our medical show. Until then, thank you for joining us, and bye-bye.